Welcome to a Homestar Pacetti Realty Network, Mastering Real Estate training event.
Hi, folks. My name is Terry Pacetti, and I currently serve as Chairman of the Board of Homestar Pacetti Realty Company. We believe that we have developed the best real estate system in America, and I believe that you think that or you wouldn't be here today. As new agents in the business or new agents in our company, we have this today as a required training program for your benefit. We believe that if you take this training and you apply it to your business, quote unquote, as an independent contractor, you will learn how to do this correctly from the beginning. You don't have to go back and relearn or retrain yourself. You have real positive influence and training, and that's the purpose of this today. In the process of this today, we are taking it, and I really would appreciate your consideration for that. So when Faith takes the breaks, we'll just take the breaks. But in the meantime, ladies and gentlemen, let me just tell you to introduce your teacher today. Your teacher and your trainer is one of the finest people that I've ever met. She comes to us with incredible credentials and credibility. She has developed over the last 25 years in this business. But as you get to know her, you will see where she's been in her life, and the things that she's done with her family and her parents are just incredible. And she can tell you more about her own personal story. But she grew up part of her life in the mission fields of Africa with her family. So you can tell what kind of people these really are. So we're just blessed to have Faith. And she's been my personal assistant for 25 years. And so many of the things that you're going to learn today are her creation, things that she put together, and from notes that we've made and mistakes that we've made over the years, she has perfected a system that will allow you to have great success. And this afternoon you'll have another great teacher in Jennifer McLaughlin. But this morning, Faith is going to come and teach you. The benefits of this are enormous. We want you to learn how to build your files and that you see the whole system. Our whole program is a system. We have laid out an entire training program to teach you how to build a balanced business for yourself. For instance, we're not one-dimensional, we're not two-dimensional, we're three-dimensional. You're going to learn all of that, but this morning we're going to start with the basics, and the basics are the course that you're fixing to be taught. So that for the next few hours, you're going to hear somebody teach and train and work with you that knows this business backwards and forwards and can teach you things that would take you years to learn on your own. And that's where she's been. So Faith has done this herself. She's been through it. We learned everything the hard way. We didn't have teachers and trainers. We didn't have a training program like this when I started in the business. We didn't have one, and this is my 40th year in the business. We didn't have one 25 years ago. We have developed it over the last 25 years. So without taking up any more of her time, let me introduce to you Faith Semino, who's going to be your teacher and your trainer today. Let's give her a hand.
Jess, am I okay if I sit down? Okay. You're okay? It's low. Uh-oh. All right. I'll stand up. I don't really like to, but anyway. In fact, I won't. How's this one? Okay. All right. First of all, let me just tell you. Move. Yes? Okay. Excuse us while we do this. We're just trying to get this part of it done, mostly for you guys, so. Ready, Jess? Okay. I want to welcome you here, and I need to tell you, Terry in his introduction made reference to that I had done all this, but I will tell you this, that everything that you will hear today from me and from Jennifer has been taught to us by Terry and some other very important people in the company. A little bit about me so you kind of understand this. When I first came to work here, I had my real estate license, and I sold real estate with Terry and the company for a year. And then a friend of ours, India Fry, who had been training me in the real estate business, asked me to fill in and help Terry out as his secretary for 6 months. She told me, just try it and see, because he had lost a secretary. She moved on to other things. And so I tried it for 6 months, and 25 years later, I'm still here. So all I can tell you is that these people are some of the best on the planet, and some of the best people in the real estate business I have ever been around and seen. And you can learn a lot, and you can make a lot of money. The profession is excellent, and Terry and his family are some of the best people to be associated with. So I welcome you, and I wish you all the best. And we will help you as much as we can, and if you have questions, we'll ask you to make notes on your books, and as we go through this, when we have the breaks, you can, ask us the questions. So we'll go through this really fast now, too. So in this manual here that we're doing this morning, you'll see some of the paperwork that you who have signed up already with us have seen already. And we have a process that we do because our company has 5 different offices, and we're members of 3 different boards at the present time. We have been members of more boards than that at one time. We've developed a system working with the Department of Professional Regulation and with the boards of Realtors, where we have a paperwork flow. And at the present time, the paperwork comes through me, so all of you have seen me when you first signed up, or Jennifer. We turn in the paperwork all at the same time to the Board of Realtors and to the state, because they do cross-check each other. And I'm telling you this because when you have people come into the business, you need to understand this process, that as you talk to people about the business, that you will be able to tell them that this is part of the process, and you can help them understand why they need to do things a certain way. So again, back to the paperwork, the 2050 form, which it's called at the present time, gets turned into the state, and that puts the state on notice that you have your license activated and that you are with this company. Your personal information that you give us at the time goes into a telephone list that we keep updated, and at the time that we turn the file in to Cassie at the present time, she is keeping the telephone roster, and she also keeps track of the emails, which we're trying to communicate with everybody by email now about meetings and so forth. And at that time, she also assigns you a username and a password for our website. We have a place on the website where you can post your listings. So we're trying to get everybody up and running on that too, because it'll be a central ground where everybody can access the information. And of course, we do not take out taxes. You will be issued a 1099 at the end of the year for your total commissions earned, but Edith, the bookkeeper, needs to know your complete name and address, your social security number, and that needs to be kept up to date as well, so she doesn't have to hunt you down at the end of the year to give you your 1099s, okay? So the independent contractor agreement that we use at the present time is in the process of being finalized, and it is going to be a requirement for everyone who joins the company to sign one. And there will be addendums added to the independent contractor agreement that are specific to the company, okay? For instance, if you're involved in the networking side, it will have your line of sponsorship there. And also the terms and conditions of the way you are paid, your commission split when you get paid commissions, okay? So it will all be laid out there. And the independent contractor agreement is exactly what it says. You all are in your own business, basically. You are licensed under the broker and responsible to him, but you have your own business. So there's a lot of tax advantages in being able to do that, so I'm sure your accountant has been able to advise you on that, okay? And we'll be making individual appointments with everyone because we like to sit down on a regular basis at least yearly, and talk to everybody about where they're at in the business and, you know, issues that may need to be addressed as far as work schedules or, you know, just how we can help you more. So, okay, and then there are other things that are involved here. In getting set up, we have a process where we help work you through some of the things, and we've developed some situations in where we do in-house printing to help keep the cost down initially of printing business cards and mail-out cards and so forth. And we'll go through that with you, and your broker and your office manager and your sponsor will help you with all that. Name tags, we have forms here. We're set up with people that have our logo, so it's easy for you to just slide your name in there and get your name tag. The company complies with all federal, state, and local laws, statutes, and regulations governing the real estate profession, and any associate who places their license with this company is required to do the same. I tell people, and it's probably not really good English, but I will say it anyway, we don't mess with the law, and we don't mess with the ethics of the company, and we don't mess at all with the ethics of the profession, okay? And this company has a very good reputation, and we maintain that impeccably. And if there's ever a question about it, you can go to your broker and ask, so that, you know, there's no gray areas, okay? So I encourage you to become familiar with everything that you possibly can as far as the real estate profession and the ethics are concerned. The Board of Realtors is also a requirement for this company to join the Board of Realtors in the multiple listing service, and it is an advantage to you to do so. The Board of Realtors is comprised of the National, State, and Local Association. It's a professional association, and it's to real estate professionals' benefit and advantage to become a member of those associations. There's a lot of education that's available there, and there's a lot of networking that goes on between the realtors at the functions that they have. The multiple listing service, that's different entities, sometimes in the same building, but they're two different organizations, and it's all about the money. When you become a licensed real estate professional, you will go to your Board of Realtors, and there is a one-time application fee if you've never been associated with a board, and then there are yearly dues that occur. And the different boards are all different. They have different setups. Most of the time, they will, all of the time I should say, they will sit down and explain all this to you when you go in and apply for your membership, okay? And they will tell you how it works. But what you must do is adhere to those regulations. The Board of Realtors is usually a once-a-year fee after you've applied and joined the board. The multiple listing service is different in different boards. In the Northeast Florida Association, for instance, the multiple listing is due once a year. In Flagler County and in St. Johns County, it's due monthly, okay? What you do is you pay your dues to the broker, and the broker will pay the board and the MLS, okay? And for the yearly dues for the board and the association, you'll pay them directly, all right? They'll explain all that to you, but I can't tell you, it's to your advantage to become associated with it and use the services, but it's also mandatory that you keep up with everything, okay? It's just, that's just how it is. Multiple listing service is a truly wonderful thing, and they have, they're now on the internet, and they're very high tech. The people that are there in the technical department, in the technical support, are extremely helpful. They have classes that teach you how to use the multiple listing, okay? And if you have a question about that system, or if you have a question about computers in general, they will help you, okay? So take advantage of all that. You're paying for it, but take advantage of it, okay? And all of the training that they provide you with there. The other advantage of the multiple listing service is, of course, the marketing part of it. When you take a listing and you put it in the multiple listing service, there are thousands of other agents that will be marketing your property with you, okay? And that's the whole key to it. So it's important to maintain good relations with your peers on the multiple listing and at the board, but it's also there for you to take advantage of it. You know, so we encourage everybody to get familiar with it as quickly as you possibly can, and we're here to help you with it. You know, different people have different levels of computer skills and knowledge and ways to maneuver around in it, but you just got to get in there and play around with the multiple listing site. You know, that's all I can tell you, because they're all different, and for me to address any one of them specifically would waste our time. The continuing education and training that's available through the Board of Realtors and the multiple listing service is invaluable, okay? And if you get on your board and multiple listing site, they usually have a schedule of classes, but when you go to sign up, they will also tell you about them. Like in St. Johns County, there's a one-time fee, and for that you get a lot of classes all through the year. I think Northeast Florida has the same thing. Probably Flagler County does too. I'm not aware of their schedule at the moment. But you need to check on that. You know, either go into the office and ask them for the schedule of classes, or, you know, get on the site and find it. There are other educational opportunities available, and we always encourage people to, you know, read your trade magazines that you get. When you join the association, there's one that comes from the Florida Association and one that comes from the National Association. And there are a lot of good books out there and a lot of information on the internet, okay? So we encourage you to take advantage of that as well. And of course, we have our training in here on a continuing basis, okay? And there's a lot of one-on-one mentoring and training that goes on as well, okay? So all you have to do really is just schedule it. And what I always encourage people to do is, when Terry and Jennifer have let you know that there's a training schedule going on, write it down in your planner and just schedule it into your life, you know, and the same with the board and all the other training that goes on that you can take advantage of. Because if you don't put it down there, you haven't made the commitment, you're not going to go, okay? And some of it's mandatory, like at the boards, you have to go and take some classes there, you know, to maintain your membership there. And here we encourage you to do that, and we encourage you to take advantage of everything that you can. There are books and free e-newsletters that are sources of ideas for real estate agents. I was at Barnes & Noble last night, and there's a table there that had books about marketing letters and sales techniques, and the books are probably 2 inches thick and just crammed full of information. And they're all on one table right there. I was going to buy them all, but I didn't. Tapes and CDs of audiobooks and motivational talks and attitude training. You can listen to them in your car, you know, or while you're getting ready for work in the morning. I can't tell you how invaluable that kind of input is for you and your life. It will change your life, literally. And I know a lot of people, you know, are members of churches and have good associations with other, you know, organizations and so forth, and all of that has got to help you with this as well, because it has a lot to do with your commitment to this business, but your commitment will stay good when your attitude is good, and your attitude will stay good when the input is good. So we're big on that kind of thing. Also, while I'm talking about that, I'm not going to spend a lot of time on it, although I could. At the front door here at this office, we're trying to build a library, and there are some excellent books on that bookshelf right there by the front door, and you're welcome to borrow them and read them. I encourage you to do so. Planning and time management. I heard someone say that you cannot manage time, you can only manage yourself. So, all of us struggle with that. We've got life going on, and everybody has families or jobs that they're doing other than this, and other things that are happening. People are moving, people are, you know, doing other things. So I encourage everyone to take advantage of the time management systems that are out there. Almost all of the office supply places have either Franklin Covey or Day Runner or Day Timer, some kind of a planning system. I myself use a book because I like paper, but it's the Franklin Covey system. And Franklin Covey has seminars where they actually teach you all day long, and we've been to some of them a couple of times, where they taught us how to use the planner system, but also a lot of good ideas about how to manage your time. Excuse me, manage yourself with your time, okay? And how to put the important things first, okay? So that you get your focus straight and that you stay on target. One of the illustrations that she used in our seminar was about the jar with the rocks. And when you all may have heard this, but a big jar, and you can say, if you fill it up with big rocks, is it full? Well, yeah, maybe, but then you put smaller rocks in there and it fills up, and then the point is that there's just enough time, but if you put the important things in first, everything else will fit in around it and you'll be able to handle it better. So I encourage you to get some kind of a time management, and every time something, I have to write everything down these days because I'm not remembering things too good. Company orientation classes. In July of last year, we had started setting up where we were doing regular training classes and orientation, and we were doing them on Saturdays, but we found out that a lot of people couldn't come on the weekends, and so we're trying to fit in with your schedule so that everybody gets into these classes, okay? A lot of the information is invaluable, and you'll find out that this first session that I happen to be here doing covers the who, what, when, where, why, and how of the company, mainly. And then the second session covers the who, what, when, where, why, and how of the business, okay? And all of this is always ongoing, of course. And then Terry also has a forum where he encourages you that if you have people or that want to take a look at the real estate business, that you can bring them in and have them take a look at the business with him. And then, of course, sales meetings and recognition. Tonight we're having an event, and the training classes are always, you know, scheduled out, and we'll let you know from time to time if there's any changes, or just plan on them being held regularly. And the offices individually will be having sales meetings as well. One of the key things in this company, because we have all these offices and all these good people around us now, we have a process of paperwork flow. And Terry talked about Edith Barnes, and she is a great lady. She signs all the checks, so everybody loves her. And but she's a great lady anyway. She's just a very smart, capable, kind, and will do anything for anyone that she possibly can kind of person. And we always like to tell people that if you have a question about anything, the process is this way. If whoever it was that encouraged you to come into the business, which in network inside is called the sponsor or the mentor, you ask them, okay? And then the next chain of command would be your office manager, and then your broker, okay? In the event that you can find none of those people, okay, that the corporate office, we have a secretary, her name is Sue, and she answers the phone, and she usually knows where everybody is, okay? And if she doesn't know the answer, she will find out, okay? And then Edith is there as well. She is in the corporate office, and those two ladies are pretty much there all the time, okay? If you need to find somebody, call there, okay? I'm on the road a lot, but you can sometimes find me. But if you ever have a question about anything, and let me just tell you this too, and this is something that I learned through the years of asking some very silly questions. There is no stupid question. If you are a true seeker after the information that you need to be successful, there is no stupid question, okay? And if you have any kind of question regarding any kind of procedure about anything, do not ever be afraid to ask somebody, okay? And we like to share as much information as we possibly can because we're interested in you being successful. So if we withhold anything, it doesn't help you, okay? And that's not what we're after. We're after giving you what we've got. So that's what all this is about. Policies and procedures of the company. We have a manual that we are in the process of perfecting. A lot of it is covered in here about the procedures, and then Jennifer goes through some of the other things as well in her part of the session, which you will have another book to go through and have handy. We have add-ins that we've put into these books as we go through training sessions and through classes and sales meetings and so forth to help you out too. And we have some handouts here of things that you'll be able to take with you and read and study and use, okay, as guides as well. We have certain basic equipment. It's changing and shifting all the time, but basically what we try and do is in each one of the offices, we try and keep everything stocked pretty much. You know, there's desks and chairs, and we have one floor desk computer that we keep up to date. We have internet access, telephones, fax machines, copy machines, you know, whatever else we need, and we keep all those stocked with the supplies that they have to operate the maintenance, and you know, keep just basic supplies available. So, but anything else that you need that you like to, you know, work with, you know, everybody's portable these days, so, you know, we're just, we just keep basic things here. But we do ask you that if you see a supply running low, there's a supply requisition form that we have, and we ask you to just make a note of it if you happen to see that it's getting low. Helps the office manager out. Telephone etiquette. We have no secretaries in offices except at the corporate office. And whoever it is that answers the phone is usually the person on floor duty. Opportunity time, I like to call it. And but a lot of times the phone will ring, and whoever happens to be, you know, if somebody else is busy, somebody else will pick up the phone. We keep message books at the desk, at the front desk, and we do ask that you be courteous and helpful, but what we found out that is if you just get the person's name and phone number, if the message is for another person, it really helps because it keeps the confusion down. Real estate transactions are sometimes very complicated. And if you try and understand and then transmit it onto a written message for somebody else and then convey that, it doesn't work too good. So just basic etiquette is the name and phone number, and then try and get a hold of the person as quickly as possible to give them the message. And in each one of the offices there are message boxes, and we ask that you put the messages and any paperwork that comes in from over the fax machine or gets delivered into their message box, and then that way it isn't laying around on a desk and can get lost, okay? It's in the real estate business, information is very time critical. If someone doesn't get a message or doesn't get a piece of paper having to do with a transaction, like immediately, it can mean a delay in a closing or that a transaction doesn't happen at all, okay? So you have to be aware of that. And basically the rule is the golden rule, do unto others as you would have them do unto you. So it makes for good, courteous etiquette in the office. Desks are sometimes shared by agents, sometimes more than one or two or three. So we ask that you respect each other's space and material, and to keep the desks orderly and, you know, clean. Files and listing contracts. The files are actually the property of the broker, and they must stay in the office, okay? And our system is that files are filed alphabetically by the street name. There's a separate file space for the listings and a separate file space for the sales, and they should be kept separate. sometimes they get mixed up, and then when you go looking for one or the other of them, you can't find it. It gets very frustrating, especially when you're on the phone trying to find something. So, but again, this stuff is things that your office manager and your sponsor are going to help set you up with all this and show you around, okay? But this is how we've done it, and this is how I was taught when I first got into the real estate business, and then when I started working for Terry. The count of the number of people we had, when I first came to work, there were probably 25, 35 agents. We had mobile home dealership going on, he had developments going on, new home construction going on. We had attorneys, we had accountants. I mean, it was a lot of stuff going on. And if we didn't keep those files straight, we were in big trouble. So I learned a long time ago that when somebody says, we need to do this, that means that I need to figure out a system to get it done. So that's pretty much where all that came from. I had a lot of help with this, a lot of help. If you need to work in a file, we ask that the original material stay in the file. In fact, it has to. And the reason for that is that there are a lot of original signatures and a lot of original communication in there that's critical to our business. And if something is missing from out of the file and there is a question that comes up that needs to be addressed about a transaction or about where an escrow check went or when the closing is supposed to happen or what the mortgage broker said he needed, you have to have that stuff in the file to be able to do your work, okay? And if you need to work in the file, take it out of the drawer, work at your desk, and if you need to take something with you, make a copy of it, okay? But keep all the original stuff in the file in the office, please. And the only time that I will say it is permissible to take the original file out of the office is when you go to the closing, okay? It's a good idea to take it with you when you go there because then you have everything in case there's a question about something, which does happen at the closing table. Okay, tools of the trade. Planner and time management system to schedule and keep your appointments and know when your meetings are. Digital camera, almost everybody has one now. And that used to be something that was unusual, but and the office, most of the offices have one here. And, you know, if you need to use one and run out. Measuring tape for measuring your room dimensions. Hammer, nails, screwdrivers, all kinds, pliers, flashlight, the silicone lubricant to loosen locks, keys, and padlocks, street atlas, road maps, you know, laptop, Wi-Fi, whatever else you can think of these days. Calculators, you know, those are all things that you're going to need from one time to the other, and the very first time you don't have some of that stuff with you is when you're going to need it. Like I needed a hammer in here the other day and there was not one to be found, so I don't know what I did with it. Computer technology. A lot of the work that's done in the real estate world today is internet-based. And I will tell you that the way I learned how to use a computer was I wiped out a $500 program. And somebody told me, Terry's wife actually, she said, don't worry about it. It's there somewhere, we'll find it, and she did. So you just have to get in there and play around with it, and you can't really hurt them. I mean, computers are not, they're tools, okay? They're not anything to be intimidated by. And I was in the beginning, and a lot of people have, like I said, different levels of computer knowledge, and a lot of people have gone and taken computer classes, and I can remember years ago when Edith was, they went to a class to use Excel, and she told me the very best thing she could do was just get in there and play around with it, and she finally ended up, and she and Cassie and Suzanne, you know, just back and forth figured out how to use it. The classes were very expensive, and they learned more from each other, I think. So you really have to get in there, and it's a hands-on thing. But in the internet, there is a lot of public information that's accessible to the general public, and it is to your benefit to learn how to get in there and maneuver around in your county websites There are public records where you can actually pull up deeds and mortgages and satisfactions of mortgage. The tax collector, you can pull up a copy of the tax bill, and the property appraiser information, aerial maps, directional maps, they're all on there. There are forms in Planet Realtor that we use in the real estate business, listing contracts and sales contracts and disclosure forms. Realtor.com has a lot of ideas and teaching online. We're trying to get into using email in the office more. I know a lot of people do it, personally, but for business as well. People are beginning to email pictures and data sheets of listings to customers, and to maintain contact lists in there so you can keep people apprised of that. So we encourage everyone to learn how to use it, and if you need some help with it, ask, okay? The people who have been using it more, sometimes they don't think about it because it's just what they do, but they will take time to show you your way around it. The floor desk computer in each office has been supplied by the company, and these machines are specifically designed for use on the internet. They have a lot of speed in them specifically for the internet. They don't have a lot of hard drive because we don't store information on the machines, but they're set up for efficient use on the internet. And they were built to our specifications for that, okay? So most of the offices, except for this one, have high speed. We are on dial-up here. And I will tell you this, that from off of dial-up, these other offices came into existence. So that will tell you there are no excuses. That's just as an aside, and you can cut that out if you want, Jess. So we ask that you don't store any of your personal information on the office computer, anything else that's extraneous to it without checking with management, okay? And I will encourage you to, and I don't have mine right here with me, but I encourage you to get the small storage units that you can carry around in your pocket. They're about the size of a cigarette lighter, and they now have 2 gig, and they're not very expensive, and you can carry your life around on it. I have one that is my business life, and I have another one that is my personal life, and I carry them in my purse, and they're unbelievable. You plug them into a USB, and you can do all your work right there, okay? So if you happen to be at another office somewhere, you can actually take everything you've got that you need to work on and work on it wherever you are. So they're great, and I encourage you to do that. They also have some that are about this size that are now 40 gig, and I actually got one to attach to my laptop so that if I needed, that's where everything gets archived, and you can do that too. So it's good. And we just ask that you let us know if there's any problems with any of the machines to, so we can keep them maintained and up to date. And the manuals should all be there in case we need to do troubleshooting. And again, the multiple listing services and the boards of realtors have tech support. If you get stuck on something and can't get a hold of somebody else, call them up and ask them. Copy machines and fax machines, we keep them up and running, and if something happens, we have people that come and maintain them for us. Terry has, over all the years that he's been in the real estate business, and when I first came to work for him, I remember they told me that there was such a thing called a farm area. And I didn't really understand what that meant, even though I had been born and raised in southern Illinois and northern Missouri, where that's what it was farms. But this concept works, and I can't tell you how important it is. And it's also extremely educational and character building, okay? Because you learn persistence and consistency and commitment when you do farming. And it's a great deal of fun as well. So when a person first comes into the company, what we like to do is after we get business cards and, you know, your mail-out cards ready to go. We'll sit down with you and assign a farm area. And what that is it consists of 1,200 parcels we try and keep it in your neighborhood so it's easy for you to handle time-wise and geographical. And it starts off with doing 100 mail-outs to 100 different property owners once a week, okay? And over a period of time, you will cover 1,200 properties. They will see your name and the company's name on a regular basis, okay? And from that, you will build your business. That will be your base of operation, and that will be your base for your business. And the farm area is, it works just like a farm. You get out of it what you put into it. So if you put time and effort and sow the seeds of your marketing of yourself and your company and your properties in there, you will get the rewards out of it. There is not a question about that. It's just how it works. It's magical. What we encourage you to do is get the maps that identify your farm area and the parcels. In the olden days, before computers and all the high-tech stuff where you can print labels out of the tax rolls and all that, we used to go to get the big county maps, the property appraiser maps, and out of the books that they had stacks of books that were about this thick of the tax rolls, and we would sit there and handwrite lists of property owners and mark them on the map. And we knew when we drove down that street who it was that lived there, what their names were, and what their street address was. And we carried these things around with us. That's how I was trained. This is a long time ago, 25 years ago. But it was fun because what you do is you get to know your area. And Terry always says, when you're driving through your neighborhood, go a different way home or out every day. So that and that's what I try and do in my neighborhood where I live. And there's things going on there, you know, and I come back to the office and report, you know, this got listed, or, you know, this is changing hands, or, you know, this looks vacant, or whatever. You know, I'm not even an agent anymore, but I, you know, still see that, okay? So the farm area is, you're going to get referrals out of it. If you know your neighbors, let them know you're in the business, you know. When you list something, send out just listed cards. When you have had a closing, send out just sold, you know. If you're having an open house, send it out to, you know, the surrounding property owners. People are doing newsletters, there's Christmas cards, and there's, you know, all kinds of things that you can be doing. And this is where a lot of your business is going to come from, and your repeat business, okay? So the diligent, persistent effort in that farm area will get you the rewards. And if you have any questions about how to change something up to get more activity coming out of it, all you got to do is talk to somebody, you know. And this is where a lot of the ideas that are exchanged in sales meetings, and that when you guys are talking among yourselves, you'll come up with a lot of ideas. And I encourage people to sit around and brainstorm ideas out, you know, because there are a lot of things that can be done, you know, that you just need to, you know, be thinking about things, you know, about how you can market yourself and the company and your listings as you get listings in there. Some people get their cards printed at a printer. The logo needs to be on there. We have templates. Jennifer has them on CDs, and we have them in the office computers as well. We found out that a lot of times in the very beginning, when people are getting started in the real estate business, between the classes that they've had to attend and then getting their license and then joining the board of realtors, to keep it economical, we started doing in-house printing. And it's on an as-needed basis, so you don't have thousands of them. There's benefits to that because you don't have to, you can change the message anytime you want to, for one thing, but also it keeps the cost down, okay? And we recommend that if you're going to do that, do 110-pound card stock. You can buy them at the office supply places in packages of 250, and then just lay them on the paper cutter, and you've got your cards done. You know, and then you can put your labels or handwrite or and put the stamps on and get them out. It's quick, it's efficient, you don't have to wait on a printer, and it's very cost effective, you know. And we do postcards. Some people like to do letters and envelopes and first class stamps. I will tell you this, that postcards, if you mail them out first class postcard, not bulk rate, because I've had people ask me about bulk rate. First class, you will get the card back with a corrected address, or they've moved, it's not delivered. And that gives you a heads up, first of all, that either the property's changed hands and you didn't know about it, or that they have moved and you can find them, okay? So if you send them out bulk rate, you do not get the corrected addresses back. So we don't do bulk rate. We found that out. And also the cards are 24 cents now, I think. Yeah, and the first class postage has gone up, plus you got the paper, plus you got the envelopes you got to buy, you know, and it's time consuming. The cards are quicker. Okay. The centers of influence it's part of what you do when you're out there marketing yourself, but the centers of influence is anybody you know at all. And sometimes people say, well, I don't really know that many people. Well, yeah, you do. Because when you get up in the morning and you get in your car and you may see your neighbor and then you go to the gas station and, you know, all those people can be contacts for you to let them know that you're in the real estate business, and then they'll think of you. Leave them your card, leave them a brochure, talk to them, make a friend out of them. People in restaurants, in the stores, you know, you never know, you know, where something is going to come from. Sometimes we'll be sitting at lunch and hear somebody in behind us talking about real estate, and I'll just turn around and say, here's a card, give them a call, you know. So I'm out there marketing you guys all the time, so pay attention. But truly, you'll be surprised at how many people you come across during the course of a day. And I had challenged everybody one time to see who it was that could hand out the most business cards during the course of a week. And we had a lot of activity going on, and a lot of people were doing a lot of business because they were conscious awareness because of that challenge to get it out there. We have a reporting system that we have some forms that make it easy for you to do that, but the reporting system is critical because of the way we are set up, that everything needs to get to corporate office, so that Edith and Chuck, who actually run the company between them with Terry and his daughters, that they're always aware of what's going on. First of all, they're the brokers of the company, but also because they need to know that because they're running a business, okay? So we have forms that are available for that, and as we go through the file, as we go through the rest of this, I'll briefly touch on some of that because it has to do with building the files, actually. So, but the reports of your activity also help the office manager and the people that are working with you to become successful. If you let them know, if you keep track yourself of what your activity is during the week, how many mail-outs you've done, what kind of advertising you've done, if you've done an open house, how many contacts you made for listings, how many listings you got, how many contracts you've written, that helps them. If you'll keep track of that yourself and then sit down with your manager on a regular basis, we encourage you to do it once a week. Okay, but just sit down with them and let them know, especially in the beginning, what you're doing. They can help you figure out maybe what you need to change to get it moving faster for you. Okay, there's a lot of information that we get out of the reports. We can see who's getting listings and who's not. So who needs help there. We can see who's making money and who's not and who needs help there. We can see the trend of the business, really, and the trend of the company, and where we need to spend our advertising money, where we need to spend our time in training. All kinds of information comes out of those reports. So we have 2 or 3 different ways we gather information, but I will tell you, Terry and his family and this company are all committed to making you guys successful. And it's a heart thing, okay? It's not, I shouldn't probably say this for them, but with me, it's not about the money. It's about seeing you guys get it and then make it work for you. So, and it's a great business and it's fun. And we're going to take a break. I just asked him, you ready? Okay. The next section we're going to cover is building the files, and I gave you a handout at the break, and there's a fairly large stack, but the last 2 pages of this stack right here are the building the file checklist that we're going to go over here in a minute. And we were talking on the break about how many papers there are and how you feel like you're getting drowned in paperwork sometimes, but what we try and do is we try and let you know why this stuff is necessary, because I think if you understand the why it's necessary, it helps you understand, be more conscious to make sure it's done, okay? And the file checklist and building the files is really, really, really important. And I was taught in the real estate business that you keep a file and a note on everything that's going on all the time, so you know where everything is and what's happening, okay? Because you're going to get very busy as you get more successful, and you're going to forget, and it can get confusing, you know, like, is it time now for me to call the mortgage company and check up on this deal, or do I order title insurance on that deal now, or did I do that already? Or so you need to make notes in there and keep track of it, and keep confirmations of faxes that you sent, so that if somebody says, well, I didn't get it, you can say, yeah, I sent it to you on such and such a date. Those kinds of things can be very critical to first of all, your credibility, but also your professionalism, because it's going to make you be the most knowledgeable person there is about that transaction, okay? So you really got to get I need you to get a grip on this idea with me. All this came about over a period of a long time, okay? When I first came to work for Terry, there were a lot of very, very experienced, capable people working there. There were brokers and people who had been successful in business, and there were attorneys and accountants, and I learned a lot of this from Terry sending me up to work with a very good friend of his that was an attorney that did a lot of his closings at the time. And we would sit there and put the files together, and I would watch how he and his support staff were working in files, and I learned a lot from that. And also from working with India in the title company. I worked with her for a while there, and we would close the transactions, and I learned what needed to go in there. And Terry had a mortgage business going for a while, and we were processing mortgages, and I learned how we were building houses. I learned how to, I mean, there's just, all this came about from all these people and me working with them and learning how to do this, and all of us together having our input into it. When they first started, when Terry and the family and the company first started buying and selling foreclosures, they had been doing it for about a year, and we had a lot of properties and a lot of files going on, and the accountant at the time said, okay, well, you know, you need to get your stuff together because we're going to have to put the, you know, do the taxes. And so we went down there one Saturday thinking that we were going to be able to get all this done, and Suzanne and I started going through the file, and we realized we didn't have what we needed. And so we stopped right there and started making a list, and that's where this list, it's been perfected and added to, and things have been taken off, but this is basically what we ended up with. And this list will, if you build it properly, will take you all the way from your listing to your closing, and if you are become an investor in property, these are things that you're going to need in there too, okay? Joint ventures and partnerships and construction, and you know, it's just a good real estate file, okay? And we've added to it and taken things away, and some of it's redundant and some of it won't apply, you know. But it's a good reminder for you to be able to look at it and say, okay, well, did I even try and find this, or is it not applicable? Okay, so did everybody get this file checklist at the back? Did I miss something? Did I miss you, David?
I don't know. I already see that.
It's at the very back. Okay, okay, okay. And truly what our aim is with this building the file system that we set up is when you come into the real estate business, it sounds a lot of times, and I've had people say this to me, well, I didn't know all this was involved in this. Okay, but when you take a listing, how you get paid is when it closes. And how it closes is because a good contract was written. And why a good contract was written is because it was marketed properly. And the way you market it properly is you know everything there is to know about it. And the way you know everything there is to know about it is when you build the file. Got me? Okay? So if you begin with the end in mind, which is your paycheck, then everything else is built toward that. Okay? So your whole process in your farm area, which is marketing, that's where your customers are going to come from for sales, and that's where your listings are going to come from, okay, is your personal marketing in your farm area and everything else you're doing. So your constant awareness is going to be to, John Maxwell, I'm in the process of reading it, just recently wrote a book called 360-Degree Leadership. But the view has got to be all the way around you, you know, for your whole picture to be. So when you're thinking about your paycheck at the end, if you're just thinking about the money, it isn't going to work, okay? You've got to be thinking about your professionalism, your knowledge, your credibility, your capability, your ability, everything all the way along the line. Because the key to it is servicing your customers, your clients, which are your listers, and your customers, which are your buyers, okay? And when you make yourself aware of all these things that are going on, all the financing that's available, and all the way the process works in a closing, and all of this, you're going to be the professionals, and you will stand out. I will guarantee you that. There is nothing more discouraging than to call up another real estate office and say, can you tell me about this property you have listed, and they act like they had never heard of it, okay? So we don't want to do that. We want to be as knowledgeable as we can. So we encourage you to build the file, because if you build the file properly, anybody can get into the file, okay, and look at it and find the information. And there are times, you know, things like directional maps. People say, well, I know where all that is. You may know that, but somebody else won't. And there are times when I am here or in one of the offices and I will answer the phone because they're busy, and it'll be another real estate agent, and they'll say, I'm in Jacksonville, I'm trying to find a piece of property out in Hastings, which this happens, okay, or in Palm Coast, they're doing it down there too, from everywhere, and they'll say, how do I find this piece of property? I don't understand your directions, okay? Well, if there's a directional map in there, I can lead them in over the phone. I can't tell you how many times I've done that, okay? And anybody ought to be able to get into the file and see what's going on with that property. And if you build it right, it'll be there, okay? So, there's a few points that I need to make you aware of, and just off the bat. And again, all this is from experience now, and most of it hurt a lot. Multiple listing service. There sometimes, if you can believe this, when you talk to somebody, you'll call them up or they'll answer you on a card and they'll say, yeah, I'd like to talk to you about listing my property, and you'll go out there and you'll spend all this time talking to them and, you know, doing your research and everything, and you'll get ready to go put it into multiple listing, and you'll find out it's already listed. They forgot that they had it listed. It has happened, believe it or not. And it happened to a new agent, and he was just devastated. It was like, what? So we added checked multiple listing for the prior listing first. First of all, if it's been listed before, you'll have a history of the property from what was in MLS, even though it's expired or it's sold or whatever. But also, you'll make sure that it's not there now, active, okay? So you'll save yourself a lot of grief that way. I don't know why they forget that, but anyway. And I will caution you, too, not to use the prior data sheet out of the multiple listing to get your own measurements and your own information about the property, because things change, okay? And also, you will find out that sometimes, I think most of the multiple listing services now, there's a place when you do the measurements, it'll say, where did you get the measurements from? And you have to choose whether it came off property appraiser or you actually measured it if it came off an appraisal. Because if you make a mistake of a couple hundred feet in square footage, they can call you on that. You know, it can cause you problems, get you sued. Okay, so you got to be real careful with that. And I always tell everybody, you do it yourself. You know, don't rely on prior information or whatever, you know, because they can make mistakes. Property appraiser information from off of the county website. It tells you the details of about the property, the size, the improvements. Again, you've got to be careful about that, because if the property hasn't changed hands and hasn't been reappraised, and they've made an addition, or there's, you know, been other things happen on the property, you need to double check yourself, okay, with what's really there. Tax collector data, the amount of the taxes, it gives you a heads up about homestead exemption and also about delinquent taxes. When you're getting ready to take a listing, if you look on the tax collector information and you see there's delinquent taxes, that's going to affect that seller's bottom line when he gets to closing, okay? So if you see that there are delinquent taxes, those are going to have to be, it depends on how long it's been, but there are things like tax certificates and tax deed sales going on, and you know, that's a whole nother thing, but you just need to pull all that stuff out of there. Again, this is telling you everything you need to know about the property so you can help the seller do an effective sale, okay? Public records. Not all of the counties have the actual image available online to print, but, and not everybody knows about this, I'll tell you. So I'm telling you secrets. It's available, it's public knowledge, public access, unless it's been sealed off. Sometimes they do that, but if you go on to myflorida.com, and I'm telling you the long way around because I don't remember the specific websites for each county. If you go to myflorida.com, go to government on the left sidebar, and then there's a place on the right that says county websites. Okay, and if you click on that, it'll give you an interactive map where you can actually click on the county, the outline of the county, and it'll take you to the county website. You click on that, and it'll take you straight into the county main page. And from there, you can go to the clerk of the court, the tax collector, the property appraiser, all kinds of information. You know, they're all different, and some of them have more, and they're in different, configured differently. You just have to get in there and play around. But first of all, when you get ready to take a listing, you need to know who owns it, because whoever signs the listing signs the deed. And if there was a divorce, or there was a quitclaim deed, or it was it's in an estate or a life estate, you need to know that. You need to know how it's owned. So you can get the right people to sign the listing, okay, and give the title company a heads up about who needs to sign the deed, okay? If there was a death and the estate has not been probated, it will delay your closing, okay? We've got some closings that have been hanging out for almost a year waiting on probate to be finished because there were people that had to be, and the process had to be gone through. Deeds, death certificates are sometimes recorded on these out-of-town owners in other states, but it still has to be done here. And there's a process, and it takes time, okay? And it also costs money. So by you doing your research in here, in the public records, and knowing who it is, okay, and what it is, you'll get a heads up and be able to deal with it ahead of time. okay, or be in the process of dealing with it while the listing is going on. You're marketing it so that when the contract comes in, you'll get ready to close. You with me? Okay. Correct legal descriptions are extremely important. Parcel account numbers, which you can get off the property appraiser and the tax collector. The legal descriptions on the parcel account, on the property appraiser, and on the tax collector are usually abbreviated, okay? The full, complete legal description is going to be on the warranty deed, where it says, to wit, that certain property, da-da-da-da-da, and sometimes it'll be an addendum to the I'm still on this page. The legal description is important. If it's a lengthy legal description, I suggest attaching it to the listing, okay, rather than trying to handwrite it out. If it's a lot and block and all that. But when you're doing the listing, the parcel account number and the legal description need to be on there, as well as the street address. And when you're doing the listings, there are blanks on those listing contracts, and I gave you copies of the listing contracts, and Jennifer will go over this with you too. If you put the complete street address, the city, and the zip on there, it helps us, okay? But it'll also help you when you get ready to put in multiple listing, okay? Plat maps in subdivisions, it helps you see where it lays inside the subdivision, and there's all kinds of information on plat maps, and some of these are available online. Aerial maps as well. You know, you can kind of see, Terry knows how to tell whether the property's low or not from seeing the tops of the trees on the aerial photographs. So that's where I learned how to do this, is Terry and Bob Lagacy, you know, when they were looking at land, you know, they wanted all that, I mean, up front. So, and anyway, it's a good idea to know where to get these maps from out of the courthouse and make friends with those people, because they can be very helpful. Okay, again, just all of this has to do with, begin with the end in mind, okay? And your aim is to market the property as fully and completely as you possibly can. In order to be able to do a really good job, you need to know everything there is to know about it. And I always start off with the file checklist, because that's where you get all your information from. If you get all this information in the file and it's right there in your hand, when you sit down to put the listing enter the listing in the multiple listing service, you don't have to go in and out of the internet. And I learned how to do this first and get everything in the file first, because it used to be that the multiple listing, if you weren't doing something in there at least once every 60 seconds, it would throw you out and you had to start all over again. So, and on dial-up, it's no fun. So, again, just real quick, I'm going to go through this really quickly. The property address, again, the street number, city, and zip, okay? And who the agent and the manager is important to put on here, because it ties it into the file, and there's a place back here where you sign off on this thing too, okay? Search the multiple listing for the prior listing first, and the listing agreement has to be completely executed. When there's a blank on the listing agreement or on the contract, either put an NA in there or a line through it or something, so that everybody knows, the broker, everybody knows that you saw it and paid attention to it, because those things are in there for a reason. They want that item addressed somehow, okay? Executed means that the seller has signed it and dated it. Whoever is entitled to the property and has the authority to sell this property has signed it and dated it. I have gotten listing agreements sent into the corporate office that had no beginning date, no ending date, had parcel account number, no street address, and nobody had signed it. That's not good, okay? Because it's, I mean, as far as we're concerned, there's nothing there. You see what I'm saying? And if the proper people have not signed off on that listing agreement, it is not completely filled out with time certain and everything addressed in there so that there's no ambiguity at all, it's going to cause you problems. And we don't want problems, we want it to go smooth. So get it out of the way right up front, okay? And make sure your seller has a copy of the final document. If they don't, and there's a question about when the listing expired, and there's an argument, you don't want that. So there's a place on the listing form where it says seller got a copy and, you know, like a receipt, right? So do all that, okay? And it's just part of the process. And if you get in the habit of doing this stuff, it won't be so hard, okay? You'll be on automatic pilot, but you'll be doing it all right because you did it right the first time. See what I'm saying? Okay. Seller's property disclosure. This document is, I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this stuff, but this is important, okay? There's a copy of it here, and it's like right before this checklist. And it has 5 pages to it, and a lot of it addresses things like roofs and plumbing and electrical and da-da-da-da-da. And some people who have listed a piece of land don't do this, but there's stuff about land and environmental issues on this seller disclosure, okay? And this will save you a lot of problems. And Janine, when she started doing this, you know, she takes her time with people, and she'll sit down and explain this to them, and then she'll ask them these questions verbally, and they'll answer her, and she makes them sign it. When there was an issue that came up in regard to one of these items on here, it had already been addressed. It was in the file. It saved a lot of problems, okay? So it's worth doing this because it gives everybody a heads up about what's going on with the property, okay? And the deed and the homeowners association restrictions and any easements or anything else that's been going on with the property, everybody knows about it, you know, and buyers are starting to ask to see this, okay? So that's cool, you know, then they know what they're dealing with. Seller's estimated closing cost sheet. Some of these are on title company websites for you to be able to go in there, and they're interactive spreadsheets where you just put the sales price in, the commission amount, estimated closing date, and other particulars for the property like taxes and estimated closing date, and it'll show you the seller's bottom line. Okay. There are also other sheets on some of the MLS sites have forms in them where you can print them out and do them by hand. Okay. But that's a good thing to do. In fact, I think it's required. When you come within $2 of what they end up at the closing table, ooh, they love you. I mean, that makes your credibility go sky high. Leon has actually used this seller's estimated closing statement to come to an agreed upon listing price, because the seller said, I want to net this amount. And they got to the closing table, and he netted $4 over that. And it was wonderful. I mean, it's fun, you know, when that happens. Makes you feel good. But that's because you did your homework in the first place, right, with CMAs and all. Okay, mortgage verification request. When you're listing a piece of property, if you take that mortgage, and there's one on the Planet Realtor site, have the seller sign that, fill out all, if he has a mortgage existing on the property, put the lender's name, the loan number, mail-in address, fax number, telephone number, contact name, whatever else he's got on there, and have them sign it with their social security number. Then you'll be ready to send that to the title company for the closing for them to get the payoff. But also, if there's ever a question about what the balance is, you know, some of the mortgage companies are making you pay for that information now, but some of them it is available to you, okay? And I will tell you this also, that it is a good idea for y'all to put in the back of your mind, you might want to go get your notary, because sometimes these mortgage companies are requiring that things be notarized when you send off for whatever, and if you're just trying to get something done in a hurry, like when you're out there buying property, you may need to have a notary to get a mortgage verification request. Because of the Privacy Act, they're getting very funny about that, which is a good thing. If the seller will have existing information, assumable, non-assumable, that doesn't exist so much anymore, okay? But if it is, you know what the term and the information is, okay? And if they know what the approximate balance is, you know, kind of off the top of their head or off of their last statement, you know, it'll help you do, you know, your cost estimate sheet, okay? Otherwise, you're going to have to say that this is your net, and then you have to subtract off, let them subtract off their mortgage balance, okay? If the seller is willing to do any owner financing, we used to do a lot of that, and it still happens. Get all of the information from them, or you sit down and talk to them about what they're willing to do and help them figure out the interest rate, you know, where it's fair and competitive and the term that they're willing to carry it for. Homeowners insurance, find out from them the company and the telephone number and approximate what their premium is. It will probably change depending on what it is, but sometimes the new buyer is able to just not take over the policy but get insurance with them. And I guess you guys know about hurricane insurance and how they're not issuing because there's a hurricane out there. Sometimes you know about that. Okay, so you got to be ahead of that game when you're selling a house and there's storms out there. Flood insurance, and more they're requiring flood insurance. Okay. My mother owns a piece of property that's up on a rise, and I don't know how many feet above sea level, but it happens to be in a flood zone. So they made her buy flood insurance. So anyway, you just need to know about that, because that people get blindsided by the flood insurance sometimes. Taxes for the year, we covered that, and for what year they're due, again, that makes you look and see whether there's anything that's past due, okay? And if there's homestead exemption. You know about the homestead exemption, you have to file, you have to be in the property, entitled to the property, and then file. They have to file for it. And if they're just buying it as an investment from somebody that had homestead on it, the taxes are going to change, okay? So you have to be able to make that determination in the listing. And that information is this stuff in bold on here is most of it required on most of the multiple listing entry, okay? Title insurance company, if they have a policy, and most people do now because they buy their property with title insurance, if they have the title insurance policy, get a copy of it. Don't take originals on this stuff, but get a copy of it and put it in the file. Would destroy an organism report, if they've got a bond, get a copy of that, because that helps too. And those bonds are sometimes the buyer, you know, can take it over, but it also lets you know what happened with the property, what it was treated for, and all that, and any kind of inspections that they've had on the property. Warranties of any kind that are on appliances or on roofs or, you know, air conditioners, that kind of thing, and deed restrictions and condominium documents. Can't tell you how important this is. When you're selling property in a platted and recorded subdivision, and even sometimes out in the other areas where it's not, okay, there are deed restrictions, and if this is when you look at the warranty deed that's recorded, and if you read that warranty deed, and if it says subject to, look at that, okay? Because if it's subject to easements or subject to deed restrictions or restrictions of any kind, you need to know what that consists of. And one of our agents just went down to Putnam County and pulled out the plat and all of the things that were cited on there as far as easements, restrictions, you know, right-of-ways and everything over across this lot, because that's going to affect whether or not they can build what they think they can build on there, see? Okay, so, and these deed restrictions in these subdivisions, they can restrict you against having above-ground pools, against having fences, against having clotheslines, against whether or not your garage faces the street, what kind of a house you build there, okay? And if you don't have that there and let your buyer see that, let the buyer see that, and you're not aware of, you know, what's going on there to talk to people, you can get in big trouble, okay? Because if you sell them a piece of property that they can't do it for what they thought they could do, they don't like you at all. So again, but this is just, again, why you guys need to do your research and get it all in the file. You become the expert on this property, okay? You don't have to become an expert on every single listing in the whole entire multiple listing, just yours, okay? And think what would happen if everybody did that. Oh, wow. I mean, you guys would be selling property all over the place. Make it easy. Condo and homeowners association dues, if there are any kind of fees that are due yearly or monthly or anything, you need to know that and put it in the listing file, okay? Because that will affect whether or not a buyer can do it or wants to, okay? Also, association maintenance dues, and those are not, the association dues and the maintenance dues are not the same thing, okay? So you have to, that's why they're listed on here like this, so that it makes you ask the questions, okay? Utility costs, I've had people ask me, well, how much does it cost for you to live in that house? You know, electricity. I'm one person. If a family of 5 moves in there, they're not going to use the same kind of water that I, or the, you know, electricity that I do, you know? I mean, it's, but people ask that question, so, you know, if you want to, that's how come it's not in bold. Floor plan of a house is really good. If you carry around, that's what else should be on my tool list, graph paper. Just make a sketch of the floor plan of the house, you know. It'll say whether, on the multiple listing, a lot of times it'll say what the floor plan is. It split floor plan, you know what I'm talking about, the bedrooms and on either end. But if you've got a floor plan of the house that you can send to somebody, like if they're an out-of-town buyer and they see it on the internet and you can send them a floor plan, that can sometimes make you a sale, because people are really into floor plans. I don't know if you know that or not, because a lot of people are building new houses, right, Tony? And I mean, they're looking at stuff like that. So it took my mother, well, back and forth between Africa, but it took her about 10 years to buy a house because she knew exactly what she wanted in a floor plan, and she looked until she found that house. And, you know, so, but this was before internet too. So. Room measurements are absolutely critical. You got to be real careful about that. And there's all kinds of devices out there, but you have got to do that, okay? Personal property inventory, you got to list everything that they're selling and the things that they're not. Make sure that everybody understands that on the listing agreement. Because if there's a microwave oven sitting there and nobody's paid attention to it on the listing agreement and it's not, you know, going with the house, but the buyer sees it there and they think they're buying a microwave, we've had problems over microwaves, believe it or not. So, if the seller has a copy of the survey that he had done, okay, a copy of the plat map, property appraiser printout, tax roll printout, copy of the recorded deed, all this stuff is explanatory. CMA, competitive market analysis, you guys are learning how to do that. Copy of mobile home titles. If you're listing a piece of property that has a mobile home on it, you need to get a copy of the mobile home title, or make sure that whatever you get from the seller has the ID numbers on there. Because when you get ready to go transfer that property to the new buyer, that has to go with it, okay? And there is one company in Orange Park that is all they do is mobile home titles. And they have been blessed many times by everybody in this area for the work that they do, because mobile home titles, we used to have to do it ourselves every time we were, and it's a trip. And if the mobile home title doesn't exist, you have to go get a duplicate. And then that means that if it's an older mobile home, you have to go find the ID number. And sometimes it's on the frame. And sometimes it was inside the closet, which has now been torn out to make room for so very interesting process. So, but if they've got a copy of the mobile home title, or they've got the ID number on the deed or whatever, but that has to be, you know, attended to at the closing, if it's included in the sale. Okay, photographs, when you're out there, and I heard, she's no longer with us, but she's been a broker, and she was a dynamite sales lady. And she said that when she first went to the appointment, the very first appointment, she would take a picture of the house then, of the property right then, okay? Because when she went back to do her research, she had the picture right there, but it was also finished. I mean, it was done. She didn't have to do it again. She could go back and take more if she wanted, but it was done then. See, and she didn't have to think about going back and doing it again. Photographs are required in the multiple listing, okay? And in vacant land, I'll tell you what's really helpful is if you go onto the aerial on the county website or in your GeoJet or whatever you use, and take a picture of the map and put it in the photo place on vacant land. That's really good. you know. I mean, you can take a picture of trees if you want to. I've done that too, but directional map. The multiple listing service requires directions on their data sheets, but I will caution you about this, that if you take a picture of a directional map, like from out of Yahoo or Google Maps or wherever you use, or even off of a paper map, just make a copy of the area. It really helps. And when you're putting your directions in, use north, south, east, and west. Don't say go, turn right, and that, because people don't come from the same direction. And then if you got a map there, then, and you do north, south, east, and west, then people can orient themselves wherever they are and figure it out. Right? Okay. I had somebody end up over on the other side of the county one time from the turn right, turn left. They were not happy. Zoning and comprehensive land use verification letter. We learned this the hard way many times. Okay. Zoning and comprehensive land use are two different things. And I will tell you this too, that on your property appraiser, I think it's the property appraiser data sheet that you pull out of the county, it'll say land use. Don't pay any attention to that. Okay? It'll get you in trouble. The zoning that allows the use of the property is something that you need to verify with the zoning and building department in your county. When you're getting ready to do the listing, don't ever assume anything, okay? The comprehensive land use is the overall plan, long range, and my letter that I send into the St. Johns County is verify the zoning, current zoning and land use, and the comprehensive land use plan use as well, okay? Because it has to all be together. It's not the same necessarily at the moment, but it has to be whatever the county has currently showing on there. Are you with me? There was a piece of property along a major highway that had been used as an office for years and years and years and years. Everybody assumed, you know what that means. Everybody saw that movie, right? That it was allowable for an office. Okay? Go down to pull the occupational license, and they said, And they said, why? Because, you know, and they said, well, it's been vacant for 6 months, there was no electricity for a year, da-da-da-da-da-da, and it's open rural, okay? So they had to go through a rezoning process that took 6 months, plus all the hassle of whatever else goes on with all that. And that's the other thing, is when people say, well, it's grandfathered in, that doesn't mean anything either. Because what they're doing now is they're taking advantage of the fact that the property's changing hands or that it's been vacant or whatever to enforce this zoning and land use. And they're very strict about it, and there's a reason for it. And everything is, they're reasonable, but they're strict, okay? And if you list a piece of property and the zoning or comprehensive land use will not allow that potential buyer to do what he wants to do on there, and you've held it out as if he could, you're opening yourself up for a major lawsuit. All right, David? So you got to be real, real careful about that. I get it in writing. Some people are taking verbals. Sometimes the county won't give it to you in writing. Sometimes it's a hassle to get it, right, Leon? You got to fax the thing into them, and then you got to wait for them to send it back to you. But it's worth it, okay? So don't guess on this one. Repairs in progress are itemized in the file. This came about because we were buying and selling foreclosures that we had never lived in. Some of them were torn up, some of them we were fixing, some of them we weren't. But buyers would want to know, what are you doing to it? And how much can I buy it for it as is? Okay, so that's where that came from. And sometimes you'll have sellers that are in the process of working on a property, and sometimes they'll sell it as is, or you know, knock off a few $100s if they don't put a new hot water heater in, you know, those kinds of things. When you guys are taking listings, you've seen the property, you've been in it, you've talked to the seller, okay? And I like to just kind of give you an idea about, maybe just ask the seller, what did you like about this house? What made you buy it? What made you stay here? What have you liked about living in this neighborhood? Because it'll give you ideas about what to write for an ad. And that's part of what you get paid your commission for, is your marketing of the property. And this is where it kicks in, okay, is when you write an ad. And there are books out there, and there's all kinds of ideas on the internet about how to write good real estate ads, okay? And you can get cute and you can get funny, but the whole end of the thing is to get it out there in front of people and make them, you know, want to take a look at it if they're a buyer, okay? So you got to, but you're the best ones and really the only ones that can write the ads, okay? And if you write 2 ads, this is what they used to say, 2 ads and put them in the file and put the pictures in there on a disc or however you do it now, we emailing it back and forth, then whoever is in charge of coordinating the advertising, it's no big deal. And we had a full-time advertising manager at one point, and all she did, because the agents weren't doing it, she drove around to 5 counties, took pictures, and wrote the ads. And she got paid a lot of money for doing that. But it wasn't really her job. It's your job, okay? It's part of what you do for the seller. So I think it's fun. You know, I tell people this story about this funny little house. It was a really neat house that I moved into in Saint Augustine South. And it was really cool, you know, and it really suited me. It had a floor plan that the rooms went this way, and it had a loft, you know, upstairs, and had a little pool outside and a little yard, and it just suited me right down to the ground. And I decided that, you know, I'd go ahead and sell it, and it didn't sell. We couldn't figure out how to sell it at all. And so finally one day, Cheyenne had listed, and she and I sat down and brainstormed, and she said to me, and this is where this idea came from, she said, what did you like about living in that house? Okay, and I started talking to her, and she said, okay, you like to read. She said, you like to be creative, so artists, writers, people that don't like to, you know, semi-retire, I mean, just all kinds of things. And she drew up a brochure, put it in the tube, you know, in the little information tube attached to the sign out in front. That thing stayed empty. And they showed it like 5 times a day, and for like 2 or 3 months, until finally somebody, and who bought it was a couple that liked, you know, to putter around in the yard, the little garden and stuff, and they didn't have any kids, and she was an artist. So it was cool. I was really happy to turn the keys over to them too, because I knew they'd take care of it and enjoy it, you know. So, but you just got to think about things like that, because in the end, that's what you're trying to do, is service your seller to get the effective sale. And the other thing about the advertising is that I like to recommend that you guys to stay in touch with your seller, okay, on a regular basis. If you have to set it up on your calendar where you sit down and make a phone call, or you send them a letter. But one of the best ways to keep in touch with them is that when you've got these ads running in the paper or in the magazines, you know, like Homes and Land or whatever else, pull the whole sheet out, because the sheet has the volume and issue or the date of issue on it, and send it to them with a little note saying, hey, we ran it, and, you know, and give them a little report about the activity. If you stay in touch with your sellers, one of the most common things that people will say about why they didn't like real estate people: they listed my house, I never saw them again, never heard from them. Which, to me, that indicates all the agent cared about was the listing and the money, okay? That's not taking care of people, and that's not service to me, okay? And what's going to make you guys stand out, and this is what I hear all the time about some of the people in this office that do that, okay, is that I heard from them on a regular basis, they cared about me. And when you take one of the best people I can tell you is Terry's mother. And she's got 4th great-great-grandchildren of people that she sold houses to. And she's awesome. She listed a piece of property from my mother, and she's one of the most service-oriented people I have ever seen. She will do anything to help you, okay? And when she takes a listing, man, she adopts you, okay? So she and my mother are friends anyway, but my mother had a piece of property, and another agent found a buyer, and so we're sitting at the closing table, and Estelle had coached my mother through this process, and so everybody was ready for this. This lady was so grateful to have this house because she never ever thought that she would have a house in her entire life. Everybody in the whole place was in tears, including the guy that was closing the place, because they cared. Estelle did, and the other agent did too. Okay, and that's what makes it worthwhile, is when you see people just, it's like, wow. To us, it gets kind of old because we do this a lot, you know, and after you've been to about 50 closings, you kind of like, big deal, but it is a big deal. It's a big deal to people, and sometimes this is the only time they do it in their entire lives, sell or buy a piece of property. So if you remember that, we used to do at closings, the day before or sooner if we got it, we would sit down and we would do a formal review of the closing statement that we had gotten from the title company or the attorney, separately with the buyer or the seller, and answer any questions and walk them through the process of the closing. And at the closing table, it was a formal occasion, okay? I mean, everybody dressed up. It was not jeans and boots, okay? It was, I'm not saying anything about jeans and boots, guys, but I'm just saying, you know, it was a formal occasion. And everybody sat there, and it was explained in detail, and it was a big deal. And I'd like to see more of that happen, because I think that's important, you know, because you're really celebrating an occasion in people's lives. And so you know, don't take anything for granted, because these kinds of things, pay attention to the detail, is going to make you special, and it's going to make you have a big business, because people will, you know, remember that. A copy of the multiple listing data sheet, that when you've done the entry, make a printout of the, it's called the private version, not for public distribution, yeah. Make a copy of that and print it out and put it in the file. That way we know that you've done it and we know what it looks like, okay? And then I recommend that you send a copy out to each one of the offices that we have. Then that way you put a heads up to everybody that this property is for sale, you listed it, and that they have an opportunity to sell it, okay? And then we have marketing books at the front desks, usually where the Fleur de Opportunity Time person sits. And if you have a copy of that data sheet in there, it makes it real handy. Then they don't have to get into the internet. Out here on the dial-up, you can waste a lot of time, you know, trying to get the internet up. So the book is handy, and that's where we learned how to do it. And a lot of times I recommend to people that they go ahead and make a copy of, you know, their own, for their own use. Like on NEFAR, it's big, but we used to have books. We used to have paper books, and that we got out of multiple listings. So it was handy, but then, you know, we all had our own too from out of the office, so that we were always marketing our own properties. Okay, and the Homestar Pacetti Realty Network website, again, I made reference to the Cassie is, when she does the addition of your name and information to the telephone list, she assigns you a username and password. So when you sign up, the next track on the file is it goes to her to add to the telephone list, and then to Edith for the bookkeeping purposes. So you probably already have a username and password for the website, okay? So you can, I think, call Cassie, maybe Linda. Well, we'll find out. We'll find out about that and let you know. But I think it's Cassie. If you call corporate office and just ask Sue how you can get your username and password from Cassie, she'll tell you, okay? A lot of the offices are starting to do office caravans where you know, when you list a piece of property, if you talk to the owner about having open houses, go ahead and schedule an office caravan for it too. And just make a day for when everybody in the office goes and previews the property, you know. sellers like that because it's, you know, everybody comes at one time, and but they also like showing off their house, you know, so. Be sure and schedule your open houses with your seller, and then schedule it with your manager, and make sure that the ads are going to run ahead of time, okay? And this is all planning that you're going to do that's going to market the property, you know, and the sellers like to know. If you're sitting down with a seller and you're talking to them about all this, they can tell that you're already marketing their property, okay? And these are things that Linda covered in her listing presentation the other night, where she told them what she was going to do right up front when she went for that listing appointment. So, but if you tell them that you're going to do this as part of your service, you need to schedule it. And then they know you're going to do it, right? Okay. Sign on the property with your name writer in the brochure box. Again, I can't tell you how critical that is. And if you put your name writer on there, you're going to get the calls. And if you sell your own property, you get the money. All of it, okay? Lockbox and MLS code and PIN code. Lockboxes, those are addressed in the each individual multiple listing and the boards. Sometimes you have to buy them, sometimes you rent them. If there's a generic lockbox on there that has a code on it, like some of them are like the lockers, school locker things, yeah. If you're going to put one of those kind, like on some of our property owned, we have some of those, or had in the past, write the showing instructions on across the bottom of the sheet that goes in the file and also in the book. You have to give enough information on there for the other realtors to be able to show the property. But like if it's call listing office, special instructions, call listing office or whatever, make sure you write that right on the sheet that's accessible to the floor desk, because anybody ought to be able to open up that data sheet and see how to show the property and tell the other realtors how to do it easily, okay? Because if we have to go looking for, if there's a phone number you have to call to let, you know, the owner to let them know that you're coming or make up an appointment or whatever, you know, it all needs to be written on the data sheet that's distributed out for our offices to be able to give instructions, okay? The list of the surrounding property owners is what you get from out of the property appraiser or the tax rolls, however different county sites use different ways to get it. This is all part of your farm area thing, okay? And if you've got a listing somewhere and you pull up, my goal was always to do 100. Whenever Terry got a listing, I would look for 100 property owners within a radius or up and down the streets or whatever, and I would immediately, they would be my focal point for all my communication about that listing. The just sold, the just listed, the just sold, the open house, everything, okay? And then that way, you know you're hitting them with it, okay? And those people are very interested in that too, what's going on there, okay? Any referral agreements that you've got going on, if it's another real estate broker out of town or if it's you guys in between you, okay? Sometimes you won't want to go to the north end of St. Johns County, you guys from Putnam, or go down into Palm Coast because you don't want to get lost. You will refer it back and forth between you, but it needs to be written in here that that's what you're doing. So that when the time comes for the closing, Edith knows how to cut the checks. This is the only way we know anything, is this information that's in the file. And the commission dispersal checklist, that's this form right here that's loose. Anytime anything happens in a file, a copy of this needs to accompany it to corporate, okay? And when you first do the listing, or the contract, whichever, and we have done entire training sessions on this thing, but this is where we get our information to do our reports for Terry and for Chuck, okay? When you get the listing, if you fill this out as much as you possibly can and do all this checklist over here that yes, you entered it in and yes, the manager saw it and all that, and send this over to corporate over the fax. This is like a recap sheet so that Edith doesn't have to go through the document and look for it. But what this also does is, like last night, I was up until, I'm not going to tell you how late, compiling the reports for Terry for today. And I had some of these things that I needed to post in my report. And some of this stuff wasn't filled out, and the fax was illegible. So I had to turn it back into Edie for her to turn it back into the agent to get it clarified. See what I'm saying? But this is also something that if we have a question about anything in here, you know, we know what to address, okay? You see what I'm saying? This is not to check up on you, but this is because we have to have this information so we know what we're doing too. But if there's any hole somewhere, then we can also get it addressed quickly. That's where I caught the thing where the person had not put on the listing agreement a begin date and an end date. That was not a listing. So I sent it back over there to her because I saw it when I posted it, and I do this once a week, a minimum of once a week. And I sent that back over to her and I said, hey, you got to put dates in this thing, okay? It slipped through the cracks, okay? So again, it's not checking up on you, it's just, you know, making sure we're doing it right. Again, the showing instructions are really important, okay? And if you put the property owner's name and all your information on there, and then make sure that the office manager has seen all this, and then have everybody sign off on it, and keep it in the file, okay? And if none of these, some of these things don't apply, see where that little box is that it took me a long time to make that box? Put a little NA over there, out to the side of that item, and then we know you've at least looked at it, okay? And some of these things, you know, like I said, are extremely critical to the whole process. And if you'll build your files that way, you'll be happy, and everybody else will be happy with you, okay? All right.
This has been New Real Estate Sales Associate Agent Training for New Realtors at Homestar Pacetti Realty Network. Please subscribe and follow along for more real estate realtor training and information. Thanks for watching.